What's up, Rishi? So I'm going to answer this question now, the where do you settle question, right? So I already sort of preempted a couple of things here in my comment, but I'm actually going to just try and answer this question from a different angle at this point. So I think the main issue with the question of when do you cash out your chips is an application of finite rules to an infinite game. Okay, so I'm just going to explain that quickly. So back in the 1980s, there was this fucking business guy. I can't remember his name, but he published this book in which he described the difference between finite games and infinite games. So finite games are games that have known players, an agreed upon rule set, and um, a shared objective. Like there's a way to win the game, right? So for example, football. Football is a finite game. We know who all the players are. They're all on the pitch, right? There's a fixed rule set, and there's a way to win, right? Which is by the end of 90 minutes or 80 minutes, whatever the fuck it is, whichever team scores the most points, and you score points by putting the ball in the goalposts, and the team with the most points at the end wins, right? So that football is a finite game. The game ends, there's a winner, everybody goes home, right? Now, infinite games are a little bit different. Infinite games have known and unknown players, right? New players can join at any time, and you don't necessarily have to know who all the players are, right? For example, you don't know every hair salon that exists in the world. You just don't. And there's going to be a new hair salon popping up somewhere tomorrow, right? So if you're playing the hair salon game, you don't know all the players. You don't have to even to play the game, right? The rules can change as well, so people can play the game however they want, and there is no objective. There is no way to win the game. The point of an infinite game is to keep the game going, right? So a famous example. So the reality is that as long as people are playing infinite, like finite games, and every player is playing the game as a finite player, the game is stable. Okay, if you have two infinite players playing a game, then that system is stable too. The systems become unstable when you have a finite player playing against an infinite player. Okay, so a famous example of this is the Vietnam War. Okay, so essentially, infinite players will always beat out finite players. Right? People who are trying to apply finite rules to infinite games will always struggle, and they'll always lose. Right? They'll always lose according to their finite rule set. So as it turns out, business is an infinite game, right? Which we're going to get into later. But so the Vietnam War is a classic example of the U.S. who is trying to apply finite rules. Right? They're trying to win the war against the Vietnamese, who were trying, like, their objective was not to win the war and for the war to end, but their objective was to survive for as long as possible and keep fighting, right? So those are infinite players, and the US were finite players. The US are trying to end it. They're trying to end the war, finish it, get it done. We need to win, right? So people who are playing finite games are always going to lose to those who are playing infinite games, especially, like I said, the system is not stable anymore, right? If you have someone who is in a war for an infinite game, they are going to, like, now that system is now an infinite system. World War II is a little bit different. Everybody who was playing in World War II kind of agreed that this was going to be a finite game. There's going to be a winner at the end of this war, right? The Vietnam War was different. So the US lost because they were trying to play a finite game. The Cold War is another great example of an infinite game, right? Known and unknown players in the Cold War. And the point of the Cold War was not to win it. The point of the Cold War was to keep it going, right? And we can argue that to an extent it's still ongoing, right? To varying degrees. So that's the difference between finite games and infinite games. Now, this is where people get tripped up a lot, because when they think about cashing out their chips, they're applying finite rules to an infinite game, especially in, let's say, relationships, right? The point of a relationship or the point of a marriage is not to win at marriage. You don't win. There's no winning in marriage. The point of a marriage is to keep it going. It's the same thing about staying fit, staying in shape. Like, you don't win at staying in shape. The point of the point is to stay in shape. Like, you don't win at being healthy. The point is to stay healthy. You don't win at business. The point is to stay in business, right? So people think about, oh, how can I cash out? Like, how can I cash out my chips and, like, win at business? But I mean, if you're doing it business correctly, the point should actually just be to stay in business. And so this is where I've heard this idea from Peter Thiel, who is the CEO of PayPal, and a couple of other things like Palantir and all these like just big ass fucking companies, right? He started PayPal with Elon Musk, so this is a big time guy, right? For those of you that aren't familiar with Peter Thiel, he had this idea of looking at the future from three horizons: so short term, medium term, and long term. So short term, how you can look at business or your career is, in the short term, what makes you happy and what are you learning a lot in. Okay, medium term is what looks good on your resume, and what brings in like decent money. And then long term for your career is what, like, am I doing something that is meaningful and important in the world, right? So Peter Thiel was making the case that we overvalue the medium term too much in society, and ideally you want some combination of the short term and long term, right? So like, is this making me happy and am I learning a lot, and is what I'm doing meaningful and important to the world? And if you can find a good combination of those two things, you're not going to want to end the game. You're not going to want to cash out, because the point is to keep doing it. The point isn't to cash out, right? Now, if you're playing the medium term game and you're like, oh, I'm just doing this because of the money and because it's going to look good on my CV and I'm going to get good credentials, and those credentials are going to allow me to get the next thing, and then that next thing is going to give me better credentials, and that, like, if you're playing that game, then yeah, of course you're going to be thinking of cashing out, because you don't intend to keep playing. You want to leave. You want it to end. But if you're playing the game of business correctly, the goal is to just keep going and to never have to stop, because you don't want to stop, right? So yeah, so for example, with YouTube and everything, I'm not looking at it like a finite game. I'm looking at it like an infinite game. The goal is to just keep playing, right? And also I'm learning a lot at the same time, and I'm having fun with it, right? Which is this combination of short term and long term. So I'll link these videos. I'll try and find videos of exactly what I'm talking about and link them for you. But yeah, so that framework is, I think, useful for me, because now I don't look at business anymore as something to cash out of. Something that, oh, okay, at some point I'm going to push my chips into the middle and I'm going to walk away because I finally won. Because the point, there is no winning. The point is to just keep going. Now with relationships, if by cashing out what you actually mean is, at what point do I actually try and build something with a person, right? At what point do I say, like, okay, I want to commit to this person and try and build something? Then if that's how you're defining cashing out, then I would say that, well, the best way that I can look at it is, once you find that the reasons to do it, the reasons that this can work outweigh the reasons that it wouldn't work, meaning the reasons to do it outweigh the reasons not to do it, then you should give it a go. Like, you should absolutely, like, commit, right? Like, that's just a very masculine, rational way to do it. I've had relationships where I got into the relationships because of just completely irrational reasons. Just like, oh, well, I love this person, and well, like, love should be enough, and like, as long as I love this person, like then it's fine. But eventually the rational reasons caught up, right? And came back to bite me in the ass, and the relationship ended up ending, because I didn't think it through rationally enough. I just went, no, well, I love this person, and well, because of that, it has to work. And then so that came back to bite me in the ass. Now, some combination of rational and irrational, again, this is like a yin yang thing, but I think some combination of those two is ideal. You want your rational brain to know and be convinced, meaning the reasons to do this outweigh the reasons not to do this. There's good reason for me to actually commit here. That satisfies your rational brain. And it would be great if you have that irrational component as well, which is like, this feels like my person. I want to be with this person. And, we're going to run into some kind of issues, but that's fine, because I want to work it out with this person. And that's a choice. Like, it is a choice. Like, this is something that I've talked to a couple of guys in the community about, but part of your brain has been conditioned to think that romance should be involuntary. Crazy, right? You should just be swooned and just, oh my God, I have no choice but to just be helplessly in love with this person. and it's just gonna feel so right always, right? And whatever comes, whatever problems come up, like I'm just gonna irrationally just feel like, oh, it doesn't matter, nothing matters, I just want to be with this person. That's not going to be the case. Now that might be the case at the start. It's very natural for you to have a infatuation with a person, right? That's what that is. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to a choice. All right, you're always going to have to end up choosing to be with this person. Not like you're helplessly like, oh well, I'll always want to be with you. Like, no, it's just a choice. And you're gonna have to wake up every day and make that choice. Like, I'm choosing to be with this person. All right, so I'm making the case that, love is not love is not and isn't always going to be some involuntary thing, like, oh well, I'm just in love with this person, I'm just helplessly, like, no. A lot of love is a choice. And as you get deeper and deeper into it, it is more and more a choice. So yeah, so if you're thinking of cashing out, for example, as, should I commit and try and build something with this person, I feel like the point for me is when it makes sense to my rational brain. Because anyway, I'm going to have to come back to the rational reasons anyway. Even if I go forward with an irrational sense of like, oh, I just love this person, I just have to be with them, I'm still going to have to come back retroactively to my rational reasons and checklist and try and justify it to myself. I know that that's just how I work. I'm just a rational, like, predominantly masculine person. So I will have to come back and post rationalize retroactively my rational reasons anyway. So if I know that that's going to happen to me, I'm going to make sure that before I proceed, the rational reasons that I have to do this outweigh the reasons not to do it. And you'd be surprised, like, that is not super difficult. Like, don't get me wrong, it is difficult to find somebody that you can really feel like you can commit to. But again, we fall into this trap because of a lot of male influencers who don't frankly know what the fuck they're talking about. And hey, I mean, you can throw me in that camp too at any point if you want to, right? Just think for yourself, right? Don't take anything I say dogmatically. I'm just talking about my opinions. But you have a lot of people trying to play a finite game. They're trying to win at relationships. For example, I think Hamza is a great, unfortunately, he's an example of this, right? He's trying to win. It's because as masculine men, we just have this, like, I need to win, I need to win. But you don't win at relationships, right? The point is to stay in the game, right? So Hamza is a clear example of someone who's applying finite rules to an infinite game. And I mean, he's catching a lot of flack for the recent stuff that he's been saying about relationships and his whole mindset. Like, there's a guy that made a video recently that's blown the fuck up. It's got like 100K views in like 2 days, called Hamza is clueless about relationships. And it's this 35-year-old guy who's in a 12-year marriage and everything. And he's just basically just debunking a lot of the shit that Hamza's been saying. Rightfully so. That video deserves 100K views. And it shows what the market is thinking. The market sentiment is that this person has stepped out of line. And it's fair. And I think one of the reasons for that is that is someone who is trying to apply finite rules to an infinite game. And unconsciously or consciously, people know that he's stepping out of line and that he's fucking up, right? So yeah, the search for the princess thing is like trying to win. It's trying to win the game. Oh, I found the perfect person. Like, I win because I found the perfect person, and that's it, game over. It's like, no, not game over, because you still have to be in a relationship with this person. And most of a relationship is not what you find, but it's what you build. Like, I'm gonna fucking say that again for those in the back. Most of a relationship is not what you find, it's what you build. Why is that the case? Because you're going to be with this person hypothetically for decades. You think you're going to be the same fucking person for decades? No, you're not. Not if you're in this group. You're a self-improvement, growth-minded individual. You're going to be a vastly different person in 10 years. All right, so the point is to grow with a person together, and that is effort. That takes, coming back and to a relationship and trying to build and grow together. So as long as the initial conditions are there, it's worth doing. It's worth trying. Hey, look, like, the reasons for this outweigh the reasons not to do it. Okay, then I'm going to commit here. And the difficult part is keeping that going, frankly, right? The difficult part is keeping the game going. So I think that's everything that I wanted to cover really on this. I think the distinction between finite and infinite games is really the reframe that I would use here in terms of like, when do I cash out? When do I cash out? But yeah, if you feel like I haven't answered some part of this, please let me know, and I'll just comment if you have any more questions. Anybody can just comment, right? I like actually just answering questions in Loom like this. So if you guys have more sort of questions that you want me to answer in a Loom, just do it. Put it in the one advice/opinions, and I'll answer with a Loom. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, just tying this back to the whole cashing out example, the house always wins. Like, as long as you're trying to beat the house, you're always going to lose, right? So I think the casino example is actually a great one because it's true. You cash out in a casino because you recognize that you can actually do that. Like, you are ahead, right? Like, for example, if you're talking about this whole like finding a partner thing, right? Like, if you're doing the whole like search for the princess thing, the house always wins. You're gonna end up fucking alone, right? Like, that's the sentiment there. That's the idea there. So yeah, don't try to apply finite rules to an infinite game, and recognize that most of a relationship is not what you find, but it's what you build. And if you're like me, you will need to rationally satisfy some kind of criteria in your head, right? So understand what that is for you. And once you feel and you think that, hey, actually the reasons to do this outweigh the reasons not to, then I think that that's a fair starting point, truly. And yeah, with business, again, some combination of the short and the long term will make you feel like the idea of cashing out actually doesn't even apply, because you are now an infinite player, and the goal is to be an infinite player, right? Because you don't want to lose to other infinite players. Okay, I hope that made sense. If not, just comment any other questions you have, and yeah, peace, brother.